In 48 hours, you'll remember this exact moment. Not vaguely, not approximately, exactly. You'll remember where you were sitting, what you were feeling, the specific second you read these words, and you'll understand why this moment mattered, why it had to be marked, why it needed to be remembered. But here's what makes this different from normal memory. You're not going to remember this moment because something happens in it. You're going to remember it because of what happens 48 hours from now. This moment is the before, and in 48 hours, you'll experience the after. And the contrast between them will be so clear, so obvious, so undeniable that your consciousness will loop back to right now and mark it permanently. That's how significant moments work. They're not significant when they happen. They're significant in retrospect. When you look back from the future and realize that was the point. That was when everything changed. That was the moment before I knew. Let me show you how this works. Memory doesn't record everything equally. It can't. There's too much happening, too much information, too many moments. So consciousness makes choices. It decides what to keep in high resolution and what to blur into background. And it makes those decisions based on significance, on meaning, on importance. But here's the thing. Significance isn't always obvious in the moment. Sometimes you don't know something matters until later, until you see what it led to, until you understand what it was the beginning of. And when that understanding comes, when you see the significance, consciousness goes back and upgrades the memory, takes it from background blur to high-resolution detail, makes it vivid, makes it permanent, makes it unforgettable. That's what's going to happen with this moment. Right now, it probably feels ordinary. You're watching a video, reading words, processing ideas. Nothing dramatic. Nothing obviously life-changing. Just another moment in a day full of moments. But 48 hours from now, when something specific happens, when something clicks into place, when something shifts in a way you'll recognize immediately, your consciousness will loop back here, and it will say, that moment. That's when it started. That's the before I need to remember so I can measure the after. And this moment will stop being ordinary. It will become a marker, a reference point, a point of return. The moment you'll think back to when you want to remember what it felt like before you understood, before you changed, before you became who you're about to become. You know this pattern. You've experienced it before. Think about the last time something major shifted in your life. A relationship, a job, a realization, a decision. And think about the moment right before that shift, the last moment of the before. You remember it clearly, don't you? Not because anything special happened in it, but because you loop back to it constantly. Because it's the reference point, the comparison, this is what I was before I became what I am now. That's what this moment is becoming, a reference point. And 48 hours is how long it takes for consciousness to complete the loop. To experience the after, recognize it as significant, and loop back to mark the before. 48 hours isn't random. It's a specific interval, a rhythm in how awareness processes change. Think of it like developing film. When you take a photograph, the image isn't visible immediately. It exists, but it's latent, invisible. You have to develop it. And development takes time, a specific amount of time. And when the process completes, the image appears, fully formed, permanent. Consciousness works the same way. When a significant moment happens, the full meaning isn't visible immediately. It's latent, developing, and 48 hours is the development time. The interval it takes for awareness to process what happened, understand its significance, and make the memory permanent. So right now, you're in the latent phase. The image is forming, but not yet visible. The significance is developing, but not yet clear. And in 48 hours, the development completes. The image appears, and you'll see this moment for what it actually is. The beginning of something important. By the way, our shared space of light and awareness is on its way to 100,000 people. Thank you to everyone who subscribes and brings this moment closer. Here's what's actually happening in these 48 hours. Reality is organizing itself around a new possibility, a new configuration, a new way of being. And that organization takes time. Not because reality moves slowly, but because consciousness needs time to catch up, to recognize what's changing, to understand what the change means. Think of it like watching a time lapse of a flower blooming. In real time, you can't see it move. It's too slow, too gradual. But speed it up, compress time, and suddenly you see the pattern, the opening, the transformation, the movement that was always there, but invisible to normal perception. That's what the 48-hour window does. It compresses awareness, creates enough distance between before and after that you can actually see the change, actually recognize it, actually understand that something moved. If the change happened instantly, you might not notice it. You'd be too close, too immersed, like trying to read a book with the pages pressed against your face. But 48 hours creates distance, creates perspective, creates the space needed to see clearly. And once you see it, once you recognize the change, consciousness automatically loops back to the last moment before the change began. To this moment, to right now, and marks it, remembers it, makes it significant. That's why you're going to remember this exact moment. Not because of what's happening in it, but because of what it represents. The last moment of before. The point you'll return to when you want to measure how far you've come, how much you've changed, how different you've become. And here's what makes this powerful. Knowing this is happening changes how you experience this moment. Most people move through reference points unconsciously. They don't realize a moment is significant until later, until they loop back and recognize it. But you know, right now, in this moment, you know this is a point you'll return to, a marker, a reference. And that knowing changes everything. Because now you can be present for it. You can pay attention. You can notice details. You can feel what before feels like, so when you loop back from after, you'll have a clear comparison. You'll be able to measure the change precisely. Most people can't do that. They move through reference points half asleep, and when they loop back, the memory is blurry, vague. They remember the general feeling, but not the specifics. They know something changed, but can't quite articulate what they were like before the change. But you won't have that problem, because you're awake right now. You're paying attention. You're creating a high-resolution memory of this moment deliberately. So when you loop back in 48 hours, you'll see everything clearly. The difference will be sharp, undeniable, obvious. And that clarity matters, because transformation isn't just about changing. It's about knowing you changed, being able to point to the before and after and say, look, This is what I was. This is what I am. This is what moved. Without that clarity, change feels vague, uncertain. Maybe you changed. Maybe you didn't. Maybe it's real. Maybe you're imagining it. But with clarity, with a clear reference point, there's no doubt. You changed. You know you changed. You can prove you changed by comparing now to then. That's what this moment gives you. Proof. Evidence. A clear before that you can compare to the after that's coming in 48 hours. Here's what you need to understand about the 48-hour loop. It's not passive. It's not something that just happens to you. You're participating in it right now. By being here, by reading this, by paying attention, you're actively creating the reference point. You're marking this moment as significant before the significance is obvious. And that participation changes the loop, makes it stronger, makes it clearer, makes it more useful. Think of it like planting a flag. When explorers reach a significant point, they plant a flag. Mark it, make it visible, so they can find their way back, so they can prove they were there, so they can use it as a reference for future navigation. That's what you're doing right now. Planting a flag, marking this moment, making it visible. So when you're 48 hours into the future, when you've reached the after, you can look back and see the flag. See exactly where you started. See exactly how far you've traveled. And the act of planting the flag, the act of consciously marking this moment, that's what makes the memory permanent. That's what makes it high resolution. That's what makes it useful. Most people don't plant flags. They move through significant moments without marking them. And then when they want to look back, there's nothing to see. Just vague blur. General impressions. No clear reference point. No way to measure the change. But you're different. You're planting a flag right now. You're creating a clear, deliberate, high-resolution memory of this exact moment. And in 48 hours, when you loop back, you'll see that flag. You'll know exactly where you were, exactly what you were feeling, exactly who you were before you became who you're about to become. Here's the question. What's going to happen in 48 hours? What's the event that's going to make you loop back to this moment? I don't know specifically. It's different for everyone. But I know the pattern. I know the mechanism. And I can tell you what it will feel like. It will feel like sudden clarity. Like something you've been confused about makes perfect sense. Like a question you've been asking gets answered. Like a problem you've been struggling with solves itself. Not through effort, not through force, but through understanding. Through seeing something you couldn't see before. Through recognizing a pattern that was always there but invisible until now. And in that moment of clarity, in that moment of understanding, you'll think, oh, that's what that video was about. That's why I watched it today. That's why that moment mattered. And you'll loop back here to right now, and you'll see this moment differently. You'll see it as the beginning, the point before you knew, the last moment of confusion before clarity arrived. And that loop, that return, that's what makes this moment permanent. That's what upgrades it from ordinary to significant. That's what ensures you'll remember it exactly, forever. So here's what you do with this information. You don't try to predict what will happen in 48 hours. You don't try to force the clarity. You don't try to make the change happen. You just plant the flag. Mark this moment. Pay attention to how it feels right now. Notice what you're thinking. what you're feeling, what you're questioning, what you're confused about, what you're hoping for. Because in 48 hours, when the clarity comes, you're going to want to remember what it felt like before the clarity. You're going to want to measure the difference. And the only way to do that is to be present now, to create a clear memory of before while you're still in it. This is your before moment, right now, this second, this breath, this feeling, this state of mind. Mark it, remember it, make it vivid, because in 48 hours, it becomes history. It becomes the past. It becomes the point you return to when you want to remember what it was like before you understood. If this video changed something in you, write in the comments, "I marked this moment." Write it as your flag. Nobody